Alright, so what are we doing today? Today we're going to play around with the truck a little bit. We got a respite from the rain, albeit briefly. We've got some clouds coming in up there, and it'll probably storm again later today. All my picked firewood's a little dirty, a little wet, but there's a couple different ways that you can test a fuel gauge. And I think I've mentioned, well, not I think, but I've mentioned in previous videos how my fuel gauge is acting funky. I'd like to determine whether it's in the cluster or it's in the sender. I could do something real simple by just unplugging it. That creates an open circuit. That should go to empty. An open circuit would make the needle go to 0. And then if I were to ground out the sensor side of the 2 wires, I only have 2 wires that come into that sending unit, it should, in theory, go right to the full mark, not any pass. That's one way to test it. But another way to test it is a little more complicated. So what you do is you take one of these, you just pull a potentiometer off a printed circuit board off some old piece of discarded electronics, and I'm going to tune it into about maybe 50 ohms or so to see if I can get it to read half a tank, and then I'll slide that pot up and down and see if I can get the needle to move as the ohms resistance changes on that. So let me get the truck spun around because the sending unit's on the driver's side of the rig and I don't feel like hanging out in the mud. So we'll get flipped around. I'll be right back in just a minute. Alright, so we're Skippy came over, fortunately. We're playing with the old Ryobi inspection scope, and just for funsies, I just shook the shit out of the truck. That's why it's changing. Let me sit you guys down. What he has is he has the end of the meter on the 2 terminals, the number 2 and the number 3 terminal coming out of the top of the fuel tank there. 10 ohms, roughly 10 ohms is supposed to be a full tank. 100 or 110 ohms, depending on which forum you read, is supposed to be an empty tank. I should be sitting around 3/4 of a tank, maybe even more. So we're reading 22.1 ohms out of the sender, the sending unit that's coming out of the tank. Let me shake the truck. Okay, so that just tells me that the sender itself is moving up and down as I'm sloshing diesel in there. And as the fuel settles. Alright, so at this point we have 12 ohms. 12? A 12 ohm resistor in there. And it puts it at just above full. Alright, go ahead and let's change the value. You're completely disconnected right now, right? Okay, completely disconnected. We're just below E. Alright. Alright, we are right now hooked up to 75 ohms, roughly. See, 75 ohms gives us 3/4 of a tank. In reality, 75 ohms is pretty close to the limit. That should be about between an 1/8 and a 1/4 tank. If 100 ohms is an empty, between 100 and 110 ohms is empty, to have 75 ohms, that should not be 3/4 of a tank. So this thing's not reading. Do we have another value? Oh wait, we got a real high one. Power's off. We are still at 3/4 of a tank.
That's 82.
That's 82. Oh yeah. Yeah, let's try 700 ohms. That's 82 ohms right there. Gave us 3/4 of a tank. So we're going to try, we've got a 700 ohm resistor. 700, you ready? Yeah, 700 ohms gives us 3/8 of a tank. Or, I guess that is. Yeah. Just below a half tank. At 700 ohms. We got issues with the dash. Oh man, how much is this going to cost me? Damn diesels. That's it. I'm out. Honeymoon's off again. Do we have any others, or is that it?
That's all we have written up.
All right.
We can probably pull a K something out. But
The diagnostic right at this point is if we have 20 ohms coming out of the sending unit and the ohm range changes a few in either direction when I shake the truck, it's plugged back in right now, and if it pins to full, yeah, 20 ohms should be reading 3/4 of a tank, maybe 7/8 of a tank. So it's got to be in here that's not reading the ohm range. It sounds like I got to contact my buddy who has a friend of who's a mechanic, who has a friend who has a company that rebuilds gauge clusters. And I'll have to pull this out and give it to him. But that's probably not a priority necessarily. Anyway, I got to talk to him and see what the turnaround would be, because I kind of want to do another ranch trip here in the next week and a half. And I don't want this truck down. So other than that, gotta go, gotta run. See ya!